I think I might be live. Oh my goodness, my hair. It's very windy out today. And hello. It is Saturday. It is in the United States. It is Labor Day weekend, which means many people are off to cabins and lakes and cottages and boating and just kind of doing that last minute summer trip to wheresoever. I'm just picking up some stuff here out of the way. Tis the last ditch, school. A lot of people, at least in my area, start school next week after Labor Day is done. So it's just like the last hurrah of summer is occurring in the United States. So, is it getting pretty windy? Are you in Florida, Al? Ravensong has no plans this weekend, just cleaning house. Yeah, I don't have any plans either. I wish I was off at a cottage or a boat or something, but that wasn't in the cards, so to speak. So I'm just cleaning up my desk for the moment while we just let people come in and give me a clean slate here to work with. Hello, Nina. It's good to see you, and thank you so much. Hello, Miss Veronica Jude. Loves this topic. Yes. So hello, Miss Karen. I feel like I haven't seen you in a while. And Miss Linda. Anyways, I'm trying not to get into these first hours. Hello, Miss. Is it time? Oh, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Miss Jamie. Happy birthday to you. And many, many more. Oh, happy birthday. Alice putting up hurricane shutters or trying to. Oh no, left with important parts. Hello, Julia. Oh, Miss Jamie, I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful, happy birthday. Birthdays are awesome, aren't they? Hello, Kat. So yeah, we definitely need to. Hello, Mr. Patrick is in here, which is the living wheel. Conversations to be had on my ancestral path and the Facebook group, trying to figure out who Patrick is that I always talk about. Patrick is my BFF here. You'll probably hear me talk about Bart and Patrick because that's those are my peoples. And so yes, he does not have a YouTube channel anymore, as I stated in both those things, but it's his fault that Ancestral Path Tarot was his fault. And thankfully it was his fault because it's such a fantastic deck. I'm sorry, my hair is driving me nuts. This growing out stuff is not fun. I'm going to get to the topic, but it was so funny. I have to share. I went to my nephew's birthday party yesterday, who's like 2 years old. And so there's a bunch of nieces and little nieces and nephews. And I was in the trampoline with my niece, who is quite young. And so I was in the trampoline with her. I'm 50 years old and I had a complete hysterectomy. Trampolines are, and I'm a female. And so trampolines are not my friend anymore. And so after we jumped around for a little while, I said, you know what, Miss Niece, I am going to get out and go to the bathroom. And so, you know what she said? She's so nonchalant. She turned to me and she said, "You can go behind the tree, Aunt Kelly." Can't even say it with a serious face. She had a completely serious face. She's like, "Aunt Kelly, you can go to the bathroom behind the tree." I was just like, well, thank you. Thank you for that suggestion. I said, do you, because you normally hear this from I have 3 brothers, so I'm used to, and lots of nephews. So I'm definitely used to boy nephews and brothers going to the bathroom behind trees. But I've not yet had a niece or a sister to say go behind a tree. I'm like, do you go to the bathroom behind the tree? She's like, yeah. Or, and she was like very helpful. She's like, or you can go over there in the corner. That's a good place as well. Like, I think I'll go to the bathroom in the house. Thank you very much. But thank you for thinking of me. So I went in the house and I told my sister, and she's like shaking her head, and she's like, one time she was like really wet from being in the pool, and they have a fenced-in yard, or a privacy fenced yard, and she had told her to go in the corner or something, and so now she just thinks it's cool, and like everybody should just go to the bathroom behind the tree, because why use the restroom? I just thought it was so cute, because I just like, she's like, Aunt Kelly, you can go behind the tree, like, no bigs, just go behind the tree. I'm like, no. I'm pretty sure that I would traumatize the rest of my nieces and nephews if they came around the corner to Aunt Kelly going to the bathroom behind the tree. Which none of this has anything to do with anything. I just thought it was cute. Anyways, so with that, on that note, today, I know I got into the topic. We've been doing so good staying on topic at the beginning, so I don't know why I'm 6 minutes in and I haven't gotten on topic, because I've been doing so well, but it's okay. It's the holiday weekend. We're a little off topic. Thank you very much, tarot student. I love it as well. I just love Dazzle Dry. I wish they would pay me to be a consultant, because it's the most amazing nail polish on the planet Earth. And I have tried a lot. But another digression. So, if you've been watching, if you're new, welcome. Happy to have you. We do 2-hour chats generally on Saturdays from 4 p.m., starting at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And the last several weeks, many weeks now, we've been doing a topic at the beginning, which is I've greatly enjoyed, and hopefully other people have enjoyed it as well. So last week, there was a sequence. 2 weeks ago, we talked about fae and fairy energy. And for me, that is very liminal space energy, right? And so then last week, kind of following that topic of the liminality of the fae energy, last week we talked about the liminal spaces in general, and found that is a big topic, right? That's a topic that I definitely think we'll probably be breaking down into further, because we didn't even talk about like journeying work, which kind of will bleed into today's topic as well. But there were so many different topics. And again, these are not supposed to be like finished lectures or anything. We're really just talking about topics that are interesting to us. And so last week we were talking about liminal space. We never even got a chance to really talk about dreams, which to me is like a major liminal space. Like that definitely goes in that in between, right? So if the liminal space is between 2 points of existence, completely asleep where you're not dreaming and completely awake where you're not dreaming, the world of dreaming stands between those 2 existences, and powerful things can happen there. And so we thought, because I think we started talking about it towards the end, and we're like, why don't we just do that next week, because that is an amazing topic to talk about. So dreams are something that have always intrigued me. I have always remembered my dreams. I mean, I won't say remember all of them. I know we probably dream far more. I'm not going to be listing numbers because I didn't prep any numbers, but we have a lot. We can have multiple sets of dreams, right? And only certain ones we're going to remember. Some people don't remember their dreams at all, right? Which I find just so strange. And I know people that are like that really don't remember. Every once in a while they might remember a dream, but for the most part, they don't remember their dreams. I remember in I can kind of guess, late 90s, right at the beginning of the 2000s, maybe. I had done a lot of research on astral projection, lucid dreaming. I don't know why these things together, but it seemed like there was a clump of lucid dreaming, astral projection, because lucid dreaming is one of those things that you want to work on first, I think, before that can help with astral projection. But anyways, those two things, as well as the other topic was, oh shoot, I lost it. It was right there on the tip of my brain and I lost it. Oh, past life, children that came back and then they have memories of entirely of a past life that like they could actually reference to in terms of, I want to go home to this house, or families and things like that. So those three things, for whatever reason, I was really into researching them. Now, lucid dreaming is where you are conscious that you are dreaming while you're dreaming. So you're in the dream and you're fully present in the dream, but you are aware that you are dreaming. And so then you can have some degree of agency in the dream itself. Now, that's something that I have always done naturally. Some people, you do have to work towards getting to that particular flexing that particular muscle and learning how to do that. And then the same thing with dreams. Like I said, naturally, I remember my dreams for the most part. And so I've never had to work real hard at that. But a lot of, recommendations will be that as soon, keeping a dream journal is really important, and keeping, as soon as you wake up, and I think some people even say don't sit up, just literally have your journal right next to you, so that as soon as you kind of come to consciousness, you can grab your journal and just hurry up, even if you're just going to write a couple, bullet points right before things start to fade. That you need to get those in right away, kind of get those down, because as you come to full consciousness, as you certainly as you get up and start doing things, those things will very quickly fade, and then you might be just left with feelings. You might just be left with overall, I had an uncomfortable dream, or I know that was a nightmare, or things of that nature, but you lose the details that are there. Now, I don't have a lot of problem with that for the most part. Now, if it's lots of little random dreams, that might be the case. As I wake up and start moving around, they might filter off. But my main dreams that I remember, and I generally remember at least one solid dream every night, sometimes 2 to 3. I don't tend to remember more than 2 to 3, but I also haven't been keeping a journal for a long time. And again, if you practice that muscle a lot more, you will, you can flex that out. So dreaming in general, if you're not someone who remembers your dreams, then you do want to read your, again, this is not supposed to be a how-to, but I know there are people who will say, oh, I don't remember any of my dreams. You can train yourself, and a lot of that is catching it. And I do have old journals where I would keep just bullet points. I would try to literally write while I was laying down, as soon as I woke up, hurry up and list off maybe the main dreams that I remember with a couple bullet points of pertinent information. And I have a lot of dreams like that. But my one main dream that I generally remember, I don't generally have those fade off. I tend to remember them full. Like I had a dream last night. I was telling my friend Bart that I had such an interesting dream last night, and I remember it all. It's now 4 p.m. I have been up. I met my daughter for lunch. I've done all kinds of things today, and I can still remember it extremely vividly. It also helps to talk. Most of our phones now have voice recording in them. So that's another thing you could do without even opening your eye. Well, you'd have to open your eyes, I guess, to start the thing, but you can literally talk through your dreams, right? You can just talk it through, because I had talked, or I told Bart about my dream in the morning. And so that process of talking through the dream solidifies it also, which helps you to not forget it later on. So probably that helped me to retain it. But I definitely have different kinds of dreams, and we'll talk about that in a minute, a little bit more. But I think that talking it out might even be better than writing, right? Because then you can just sort of ramble your way through. You don't have to be super, super awake to write or type or something like that. You can just kind of ramble, ramble through the dream and have that to go back to. And again, just the act of speaking it or writing it, I think, is going to help you to lock in that memory of the dream. But this dream I had last night, I remember everything about it. And I do, like I said, have different layers of dreams. I know when a dream has a special message for me. The colors are different. The sounds are different. Definitely the colors are much more vivid. Some people don't dream in color either. I definitely dream in color, but there are certain dreams that are either prophetic or like future dreams, or just have a special message in some way or another. Pay attention dreams. Those are very vivid in color. I always remember them, and I always remember a lot of details in them. And so this was very vivid in color. And I don't know, it was one of those dreams that I was plopped like right into the middle of something. So I don't know what was happening. I feel like there was some sort of, it was either in the apocalypse, which Bart was laughing at me because I do have a lot of post-apocalyptic type dreams. I also write and read a lot about those things, so that doesn't surprise me too much, but it just seemed like something was going on. But I was just plopped into the middle of whatever was happening, and I fell backwards. It was supposed to be on purpose. Like the intention was that I was trying to do something. I, again, plopped into the middle of it, and I fell backwards, like I talked about last week, of falling forward and everything pausing and slow motioning from when I skydived. It felt similar to that, but going backwards. I fell backwards, and it had that same feeling. And then I crashed into a room, and I was definitely a basement. It was of poor, it was like just basic, like wood. There's a wood bed. There was I know it was in the past. It was definitely in the past. There was like a wash basin with one of those jugs that they would use, but it wasn't a fancy one. But there was a wash basin with one of those jugs that they would use to wash their hands, obviously before plumbing, indoor plumbing and things like that. And it was on a little stand by the bed. And there was definitely another room, like kind of flowing in, like the bedroom space and the living space were tied together. So probably not a very big space. And there was somebody in the bed, and there was somebody outside of the bed, and they hurried up and motioned for me to get under the bed. And I scrambled underneath the bed. And as soon as I got underneath the bed, there was somebody boots. So there were big, heavy boots, not necessarily military and definitely not modern boots, that were looking for things and walking around the room very close, because I could see the boots like at the end of the bed and then walking around. And then I looked under one side, and there was a woman who had to have been on the floor, because I was looking at her and I was on the floor. And she had like on one of those old scarves that they wear. She kind of had a older, round kind of face, and she was wearing a scarf. Her hair wasn't like white or anything like that. It was dark. And she was looking at me, and she just kind of smiled reassuringly. And then she, fairly shortly, the boots and stuff went away, and I got out from under the bed. They clearly didn't speak the same language. And she started showing me a bunch of divination cards. It was so cool. It was like, there were several different, some of them, they were like, it seemed to me like she was showing me the cards that she was creating. Some of them were partially done, some of them were not. I recognized one of the decks that I think was the Piatnik, my first Lenormand deck, which is probably why it was in there, but it was, I recognized the tree for sure. And so there were, I think, almost a full set of those cards that she was, some of them weren't completely finished. And then there was another set that was like a skinny blue, it had blue edges on it. It was real skinny and it had text along the bottom. It was very, I can see them still. And that was like a full set that was really cool. I'd never seen before. And there were some other things. So she was just kind of showing them all to me. But I pointed to the one that I recognized, and I told her that people were still using that in the future, that that was still something people were using, that her art was still being used into the future of when this was. And she started crying and was like so happy to hear that these things were still being used in far into the future for her. And then I remember getting sucked back into the future and I woke up. So it was, but I remember like the colors of the wall, like the details were like fully there. Then sometimes you have dreams, right? Where you're just, you have that vague, those feelings about the dreams. Flying dreams are awesome. I'm sorry. I try not to pay attention too much to the chat because I'll get off track. And I try to keep these first parts at least fairly on track, but flying dreams, yes, I am an avid dream flyer for sure. But that one was very vivid. And it literally had me, I woke up, and as soon as I woke up, I pulled, because underneath my bed, like I have the decks that you can see out here, but I have under the deck, under my bed containers that I keep the rest of my collection, and I switch them out several times a year. But the box is smaller that has like I keep them in, I have Oracle deck one, I have a fortune telling deck one. So I literally sat up and I pulled that box out I could reach down and pull it from underneath my bed and put it on my bed and started rifling through to see if I could find, because I really felt like I had recognized the one deck, but I didn't recognize the other ones. And so I was so I pulled out my Piatnik to see whether or not that was the one that I thought I had recognized. But it's not, I can picture the outer that I got on Amazon, because I could even picture the outside of the box having the one card that I really vividly remember. I still think it was probably the Piatnik. The first one was, Piatnik's a company. I call it the Piatnik. I don't think that's not the name of the Lenormand. Anyways, it was so interesting, but it was interesting because it was so vivid and it was so realistic and completely immersed in it. Whereas again, sometimes you can wake up and you have just that vague sense of uneasiness, or that you wake up terrified from a night. I do have a lot of nightmares as well. Wake up from a nightmare. And you may not even know all of the details of what happened. You just feel the feelings of them. That can be quite different. Easy E417 says our society doesn't attach enough importance to dreams. I agree. Dreams to me are very important. I think there are dreams that, you might, if your family has what would have been called foresight, I suppose, in the past, or second sight, although that can lead, I think, into seeing other things as well, which is something that definitely runs in my family. Even the people who are strong Christians will talk about that. There's those types of dreams, obviously, or truth-based dreams. There are obviously journeying dreams where you're going on a internal journey into the web, where you're getting messages, or there's an oracle, there's a message there for you. Those are very powerful. They could, past life dreams, if you believe in past lives like I do, having, memories and things like that from past lives. Of course, there's the dreams in which we're processing. Most of the time, you can kind of figure out, like, you have a particular dream and you're like, why in the world did I just dream that? You can usually find, like, oh, okay, I watched this, I talked to so-and-so about this, and maybe this particular thing is bothering me. And you can see how your brain took those things and kind of worked with those images, worked with those experiences, worked with the problem that you're trying to solve to sort of help you process out particularly something. And so those are also really neat because you can, at first you're like, that is the weirdest thing. Like, there's no reason that I should have had that dream. But if you really start to think about it, you can generally find reasons, like little bits, this little piece, this little piece, this little piece, that you can kind of connect the dots as to why you ended up with this particular dream, which I think is cool as well. And apparently something that we really need, right? We need to have that space, that dream space, to be able to process things that we need to process. If you're a person who's in school, this was 100% for me when I was in school, like before tests and things like that. If you just before you go to sleep, read through your notes or listen, because I would often put my notes onto audio. If you listen to that and or read through your notes just before going to sleep, some people, your brain can be processing that information while you're going to sleep, and it can actually help you to do better on tests and things like that. I definitely feel as if that was very beneficial for me to do before, like, test day or something like that, that it helped me to process through that information more solidly, and I had a better shot at my tests. Now, I was also pretty good at prepping for tests, so I guess it's hard to tell what is and what isn't, but that's my personal belief, that can be helpful. I'm going to skim back a little bit. Anna Teresa, who is Ladybird Tarot, I've not dreamed in so long. I used to have vivid dreams. Sometimes there are premonitions which scare me. Yeah, premonitions can be very scary for sure. And I think we might shut things down and set up, maybe unconsciously so, set up boundaries and kind of shut that thing down, so then we don't have to experience them. I know I have a spread. I'll have to pull out my book because I can't remember if it was a spread that I found. Because the other thing that I have a lot of experience over my entire life is repeated dreams. Now, these are generally, from my personal experience, these are generally not happy dreams. They're generally more difficult dreams that very clearly have a message to come through. Whether that is me trying to process something and get that processed out and get that finished before they will stop, or whatever that might be. But there tends to be those things where night after night after night, I will have the same exact dream. And it's generally not variations, although sometimes there are slight variations, but they will be much more stick to the same script, and they will come over and over again, and they're usually more difficult types of dreams. In that case, I think I did a video on, I feel like I have a video somewhere on my channel about that, because I think I did the spread after I had a particular difficult dream. This was something for grief work that was very much the case. The first year after my son died, the repetitive dreams were pretty difficult to deal with. And they were generally not pleasant dreams. And that's putting it mildly. But what I have often found is that if I process it, if I take the time to journal or think about or work through what is the message that I needed to get out of this dream, what is this? What is my subconscious? What is my higher self? What are my guides? However that is for you, trying to convey. And when I work that out, that tends to be what stops the cycle of the repetitive dreams. So I do have a a spread for figuring out what a dream might mean that I've actually found to be really helpful. I'm going to see if I can, I don't think I can reach it from here though. Let me see. And I don't know that it was mine or if it was somebody else's spread that I found. It should be written in here if I did. But I do think I have a video of it. If I can find it, I will link it below. I feel like it wasn't a really big, I have a lot of spreads, so this may not be very helpful. I feel like it was not a very big spread. No, I'm not going to be able to find it right away, so I'll have to look it up. But I'm sure there are many out there. Like, I'm sure that you can do a search for dream dream interpretation spreads, and there's probably a ton of them. And I'll try to find the one that I have and put it in there. But I've definitely found that if I'm in a cycle of having a dream repeat itself over and over again, doing a reading of that dream has really helped me to kind of sort it out. Because again, your subconscious is trying to sort something out in the dream. So if you use a tarot reading or an oracle reading or something of that nature to help you kind of click into, all right, well, what was the message there? That can be really helpful, and will often then stop the cycle. For me, will often stop the cycle of having repetitive dreams when I take the time to suss out what am I supposed to be getting from this particular dream. It can be very helpful. So yeah, I've definitely found that to be helpful. I'm going to kind of scroll up here a little bit. I'm really I never know. Predicted one is one time in the event. You get more of the deja vu, sparkle divine. Yeah, I always know beforehand. It's very frustrating because there's nothing I can really do about it. Karen says, I dreamt I was in a cafe and the menu sang to me, we know you like roast and we know you like toast, so why not have roast on a toast? That is so awesome, Karen. I would be perfectly happy to have a dream with the menu singing to me. Hannah kind of says, my regular dreams almost always happen in communal living setting, like on a cruise, in a summer camp, on a train, in strange houses I've never been in. That's so interesting, Hannah Conda. Have you sorted out like why you think that might be? Are you technically mostly a loner in other times? That's so interesting. Open your own tarot sort of side. So then those are those dreams. Yeah. So that's what you really want. Sherry's talking about how she's been having a lot of dreams about what she wants to achieve, which I think is really helpful, right? And you can set your intentions. That's part of that. Like if you look up the, again, I think you could do a whole video on lucid dreaming, but part of, and this was a long time ago when I did a lot of research on it. And again, it's something that I've always been able to do naturally, but a lot of that was sort of setting those intentions, because I do think I can set the intention for a dream and have it. So if you're going to bed and you're thinking about what it is that you want, what kind of dream you want to enter into, whether you want to take a journey to meet a spirit guide or to find a spirit animal, or just to kind of process through a particular situation, or you had a dream and it was really fantastic and you're like, oh my gosh, I want to go back and have that dream again. You can set that intention for the dream before going to sleep so that you can enter into that dream when you do go to sleep. And of course, then set the intention that you're going to be aware in the dream so that you can change things and have some agency within the dreams. Again, whole other subject. Some people can lucid dream naturally. Other people cannot lucid dream naturally. And it's something that can be learned as well. I probably would do very well in an intentional community. Okay, so you probably do well with that. So maybe that's something that you crave then, is that sense of community that is that ongoing daily thing. I've seen cats appearing as if they were in REM sleep. Yeah, I've never researched that, so I don't know if we know if, well, yeah, sure. My Isabel seems like she dreams. Seems like she has periods of dreams, but I don't know if we know whether. I've never researched that, so I don't know. I don't know if we know that they do drop into REM sleep or not. I don't know anything about it. I think maybe my tear shops dreams might be my mom urging me on again, urging you to have your dreams. I'm just scrolling back. Sometimes I have dreams where I know I'm dreaming, but I don't usually. Oh, you don't like being in the lucid space. Can you, maybe what you don't like, again, I'm not, this is not a counseling session, and nor am I a dream counselor, just to be clear, but it just fascinates me, because I wonder if I could see where being aware in a dream and having no control or agency would be very discombobulating. So that's definitely something that I would find to be uncomfortable. But if you're aware and you have some agency, sometimes that can help you to process through more intentionally through whatever's going on in the dream. But yeah, I would definitely not like to be aware, but just be watching and not really be able to do anything. That would probably upset me as well. As 417, I'm sorry, I don't know how to call your name here. I think REM is like debriefing before we come back to the waking life. I think some are, and again, I do think there are different types of dreams, and probably those ones, I don't know, the ones that I do definitely remember, the one that is the one that I wake up from, right, which makes sense because that is the freshest, and those don't often, like, those are often really vivid ones. I will remember other ones as well, but that one that I wake up from is definitely the most vivid in my mind, and is usually the one that I'm thinking about through the rest of the day, which is interesting. Oh, just easy. Okay. Sorry. Matt Fernsberg, I remember, or Karen, somebody I think is talking about dream spaces. So yes, I definitely have dream spaces that I return to over and over again. And I definitely agree with you, Karen. I think when I know I'm dreaming, I can't fully participate in the dream. I guess I'd rather be taken away by a dream and not know. I know it's not real. You'd rather be fully embedded into the dream and enjoying it, which I guess that's going to make a difference whether it's a positive dream or if it's more of a nightmare. As someone who does have a lot of nightmares, I do prefer when I'm aware that it's a dream. It's easier to deal with when I know in the moment that this is just a dream. It's still scary and the feelings are still there, but it's just easier to process. I'm sorry, I'm trying to scroll back. I think it's such an interesting topic. Is there anybody who's on right now who doesn't dream at all or doesn't remember their dreams at all? Because that would be interesting to see whether it makes me wonder if people, and again, we're just rambling about this, but it does make me wonder if people who are into things like tarot and into things like oracle cards and these types of things, we're probably more inclined, the type of people who are into crystals and working with crystal energy or into tarot or oracle and these types of things, I think that we're probably more inclined to take dreams seriously or to pay attention to our dreams. So I feel like as a whole, we might be people who do then and end up remembering our dreams more and processing through our dreams more than some people, just because we are going to probably be personality types who we're probably going to be the personality type who are going to remember them and pay attention to them. Yeah, see, that can also be, that's a good point. Anna said, I think she said she rarely remembers them. And they're generally warnings. But she also does, like me, doesn't sleep a lot, and that definitely can make a difference, right? So, if you're not, I have insomnia issues, always have since I can remember. I don't ever remember not having insomnia issues. And so that can make things, either because I wake up a lot or I have a hard time falling asleep, that might make, your periods of time in which you're going to get the types of dreams that you're going to remember, maybe a smaller window, and or might be repeated more often. I'm not sure, but I'm sure quality of sleep and length of sleep that you actually can sleep is going to impact that as well. So that certainly makes sense. I definitely agree about parallel life and parallel. I've had some really crazy parallel life type dreams that were ongoing for a very long time. I mean, there's so much about dreams that are fascinating. My mother was a dream reader, and my grandmother too. They were interpretations or like predictions for the future. That is so awesome. I've definitely had people get tarot readings off of their dreams. That is something that people will request tarot readings off of. This is the dream that they had. This was sort of, at least the ones that I've done with people, this is the dream that they had. This is what their kind of reaction to the particular dream is. And then, what can we get from the cards that might help to shed some light on a particular dreams. And like I said, I definitely have had a lot of help with doing tarot readings for myself, especially with the repeating dreams. So I'll try to find that spread. If I haven't done a video on it, I will make a video on it. But I just feel like 90%, a huge part of me thinks I have a video on this where I do an example. So I'll put a link in the description box below if I can find it. I wonder if dreams become more available as we're ready to interpret them like a form of spiritual growth. That makes sense. That makes sense. Or just the more that we're paying attention to it, the more that, I don't know. I feel like some of my repeated dreams that I've had to really deal with were very confronting. I didn't feel like I was ready to deal with them. But when I did deal with them and process them, they stopped and I felt better. So maybe it was sort of forcing me to deal with something that I was kind of saying, no, I don't want to deal with right now. It's certainly possible. It would be great to talk about dreams with a psychiatrist or psychologist or somebody who's like a dream counselor or works with dreams a lot. Because obviously we're just talking about personal experience here. I usually dream that I'm in my own house and I know it's my house, but it looks completely different. Yeah, it's interesting how that happens. Ultraviolet Morgan dreams a lot about houses and having too much stuff. That's interesting too. So you maybe are, because then that's processing, like, do you feel confined and having too much stuff in your real world? And so then that filters into the dreams, doesn't it? Most of my dreams now are more like recapping the day's events. Yeah, I don't get a lot of those recapping the day type dreams. That's never been the types of dreams that I tend to have. Although, like I said, sometimes I can pinpoint and say, oh, that was a really weird dream. And then I realize, oh, well, this happened a couple of days ago. I talked to somebody about XYZ. I saw this particular television or movie show, and then it got like mashed together into some kind of a dream. So that does happen sometimes. I still dream at 55 that I'm late for school and in trouble. Oh, yeah. I mean, that's a whole nother subset of dreams. Those like anxiety dreams, teeth falling out, being naked in front of a school assembly. I used to have a dream all the time of this one particular job. It was the first job that I had out of high school. that was like a real job, so to speak, like an adult job. And then when my son was born, I never had a job like that again. So it was then the only job, but I would always have, if I was stressed out, I would always have the same dream where I couldn't read the computer screen, that I needed to read the computer screen in order to work, but I couldn't see the screen. All of the letters and things were all blurry or really faded so that I couldn't read the computer screen. But yeah, no, those are all those wonderful stress dreams, right? I had a dream once that I was knighted to fight a dragon because no one else wanted to do it, except it wasn't really a dragon. It was a gigantic bull. That is awesome. That is awesome, Izzy. Sometimes I dream about being late for a job, but you don't have a job in which you have to show up. That's interesting. Oh no, Spirited North often dreams of crashing my car in slow motion, and I'm not going very fast at all. So it's not like a huge crash, but I just can't seem to be able to stop the car. Yeah, not feeling in control. Yeah, I make my own hours. Yeah. Then yes, I think like Arturo IT says that, when he says he has dreams of terrorist attacks or things like that, I do think that a lot of times we do dream about the things that we're afraid of, right? That's going to filter into our dreams as we try to process those things. I do think that keeping a dream journal, and this is something I don't do anymore, but I forever, I would say most of my adult life, I had a dream journal, and it wasn't anything that was in detail. Some of it is like, I can go back and read some like long pieces that I really go through and write the whole dream out, but a lot of them aren't. A lot of them's just, this was a basic dream. Here's the basic bullet points. These are colors that I saw. These are things that really stood out in the dream. So that it's not like it doesn't have to take a long time to record what you want to record. But I think that over time, and that's the thing about dream journaling that I think, is that the more that we consistently do it and the longer that we consistently do that, that does help with memory recall. It helps with remembering the dreams that we're having more frequently. It's like one of those, I guess what I'm trying to say is there's a cumulative effect, I believe, in if keeping a dream journal. It doesn't work as much when it's hit and miss. I mean, it's great for keeping track of those dreams, but if you want to increase your dream recall and those types of things, doing it consistently is, I think, where you get the biggest payoff for a dream journal. Oh, that's Karen saying, she had an incredibly beautiful dream. I think I was visiting heaven, whatever that might be. I was walking across the seabed at night, no water, but the sky was completely rainbow. Yeah, that sounds beautiful. And you probably can still feel the reaction. I've had beautiful dreams. I've had very realistic dreams that are beautiful and powerful. I think that dreams are incredibly important. As I said, I mean, in an hour of chit chat, we could probably have, a whole hour on prophetic type dreams, those sort of larger truth dreams where you just realize, or I've had conversations with an uncle of mine that passed away in dreams that were so powerful in terms of hashing out what things, and those are the ones I can't remember all of it. And I would have that multiple times where I know that he was telling me a lot of important things that he realized after he passed, that he'd learned. But I can't ever recall it all, but it was enough to have a sense that it's okay, don't worry, right? Things are going to be fine. So those kinds of like important, like bigger truth dreams. There are obviously the dreams that are processing through the things we're afraid of, past life dreams, journey dreams, that would be an interesting whole topic by itself, but the parallel worlds dreams are so fascinating, especially if they're like ongoing ones. There's just so many different ways in which we we process and work and use. I think that's what it is. It's like we're using this space. So if we try to bring it back around full circle, because we're gonna have to wrap up, but if we bring it back around to what we were talking about last week in terms of liminal space, right? So if we have the completely asleep physical body needs recovery mode, right? And then we have the fully awake over here. And then in the middle, we have this amazing liminal space that's sometimes being used to process the daily problems that we're doing. That space is sometimes being used to access past life memories, sometimes being used to have conversations with our ancestors, meet spirit animals, guides, or whatever that might be. Sometimes, it's a space that's being used in a variety of different ways, which is so fascinating to think about the way how amazing is the human mind. Number one, can we just please, we could sit there for a second, right? But there's just so many different ways in which that space, that liminal space of dream, can be used to process grief, to process traumatic events, to all kinds of things that can happen. It's amazing. I do think there's real importance about how the emotional aftermath of dreams can feel. So yeah, that is true neighborhood art. So especially if you're prone to not everybody has nightmares, right? I know of people who never had a nightmare, or at least they don't ever remember their nightmares, I should say. Don't have any memory of nightmares. I have very, very vivid, very real nightmares, and it isn't fun, right? And it is sometimes can impact the emotions and things of that nature are there long after you wake up. Dream you're awake in bed. That's scary. Yeah, Karen. That's I don't have that problem. I used to. My daughter also, and I think some people are prone to night terrors. I am definitely prone to night terrors. I don't have them anymore, or I very rarely have them, but I was definitely a runner. I sleepwalk, so that's a whole nother thing, sleepwalking, right? I slept walk all the time. My aunt, I remember I would go on vacations with my aunt when I was little, and she used to have to, if we slept in a hotel, of course, you're moving from your normal space into a strange space, and she used to have to sleep in front of the hotel door because I would run out of the door. And my daughter as well, I've had to chase her onto the front lawn many, many a time. For sure. I sleepwalk, yeah. Hello, Miss Leslie. In the dream, sleep are so scary, yeah. I don't believe I've ever had sleep paralysis. That would scare me as well. I instead sleep run into many walls. Many walls have I run into in my life. So I'm more in that space between, because I think when sleep paralysis happens is to do with being between. So not just between, not REM sleep and sleep, but between sleep and being awake. There's that you kind of your brain gets stuck in another in-between space, and that's where that sleep paralysis happens. And that happens to me where I'm in between being awake and not being awake. But then that's where very vivid feelings of like somebody being in the house or something like that, where I will run and hit walls pretty harshly. And that's what my daughter has as well. Truthfully, if I had to choose, I'd probably choose the running and hitting walls than the paralysis. That would definitely freak me out. But I'm also very claustrophobic, and that sounds very claustrophobic inducing. Oh, no. I used two hours to and sleepwalk twice. Yeah, I think it's something. I do think it's. I mean, everybody may have occasionally experienced sleepwalking or something like that, but I do think some people just are prone to it, like my daughter and I. I'm just trying to scroll back here, but I don't know if anybody said whether or not. There are, whether or not there are people who just don't ever have nightmares. That would be interesting. to see, although I have to say, I know quite a few people, like in real life, I know people who have told me that they have no memory of any nightmares. I'm like, oh my goodness, that seems like that would be pretty amazing. So I am definitely not that person. But I know there are people out there who don't have nightmares, and or they just don't remember their nightmares. I don't know which that might be. I'm just going to shuffle this while people are. They claim that sleep paralysis can occur if you're under stress, which makes sense, Claire. Certainly, my sleepwalking and sleep terrors, and my daughter's will increase with stress for sure. I mean, I think a lot of stress can obviously have stress can, I think, a lot of times impact so much to do with our body, our mind, our spirit. Like stress is definitely has such an impact on us as a whole that it's certainly going to impact our dreams. Yeah, I don't consider weird dreams nightmares either. That's a good point, Anna. Whether something, I guess for me, a nightmare is where you wake up and you're terrified, right? Like you have that after effect of being so scared. Has to do with a lot of fear. I definitely have had weird dreams that are like, you look back on them, you're like, oh, like that was just so strange, but it didn't scare me or anything. So I guess I don't think of those. I know, that's a good point, Karen. Oh no, we need to check in. I need to start a post on my Facebook page. And if you have any crazy dreams last night or tonight, you need to post and let us know, because now we've talked about all of this. It will be so interesting to see what people dream about tonight. Oh no, I hope we don't kick off a bunch of really strange dreams for people. Oh, no. Yeah, I agree, Fern Spear. I feel like nightmares is that feeling, that terrifying, scary feeling, which is a little bit different than just weird or strange dreams. Karen, we have jinxed everybody to having strange dreams tonight. That's basically what we have just done. Oh no. Okay, what I'm doing right now, sorry, I didn't even say, I am shuffling. Oh, I need to pull out the one from last week. So every week we are doing we've done for quite some time now. This was our student tarot I always get her name wrong. A long time now suggested this, and we have been doing a card of the week through the Art of Life tarot deck. And so I am pulling a new one for this coming week. So that's why I started to show. We've been kind of wrapping up our first hour with this reading. So that's why I'm sorry. My brain is thinking, and I'm not being very verbal. I'm not being very verbal about what we're doing. I had a dream about sinking under the water in the tub, and it was really bad. But now I just turn it into swimming tour. See there, that's the power, though. That's Sherry. That's a really good example, though, of how you can use lucid dreaming, and or dream intention setting. So that too. Let's say you have had a repeated dream of you've had a repeated dream, as you said, of going underwater in a tub. And then if you set that intention before you go to bed, either to lucid dream so that you can change, but it's both, I guess. But you can, I guess, go either way, where you just set the intention that when that happens, you're going to swim out into the ocean instead. Or if you're lucid dreaming, then you need to change the narrative, right? So that's what lucid dreaming is about being able to get in there and change that narrative. And so being able to shift that away from one thing and move it into another is a really powerful and is definitely an important part of, I think, dream work. So yeah, no, that's a really good point there. I also find that when I do process through the dream, so if I did do a reading or something like that where I've kind of figured out the message, I might still have that dream one more time, but then it does shift. It's the ending or the narrative of it shifts away from what the repetitive part was because I've processed through what that is, which is so interesting. I quite like that when that happens because it feels like it sort of ends things. And you can also set that intention for help or guidance when, if you're having the sort of repeated uncomfortable dream, which I've definitely, that's for me is where animal, I work with animal spirit energy a lot personally. That's a personal thing. And that's where bear energy for me is really strong because I will literally have, so if I'm having a repeated dream where I'm starting off down onto the path of whatever bad is going to happen, I will literally have my bear will show up and push me off the path or block the path and not allow me to go back into the pattern of whatever that difficult dream is, which is powerful. Yeah. I'm with you, Fern Spirit. A lot of times once I figure it out, they just stop cold turkey. But I do like the ones that I'll have the dream one more time, but it will shift. Narrative has been changed, which I do think is interesting. Do folks have dreams about tarot? I actually don't have very many dreams about tarot. I just had the one that I talked about last night that was about like Lenormand or fortune-telling style cards. And one time, Kelly Bear, I talked about this a couple years ago, but I know Kelly Bear was in it. I don't remember if Veronica Jude was in it. There were a couple people like from YouTube that, do YouTube videos on tarot. And it was apocalypse because I have a lot of dreams about apocalypse. And it was in the apocalypse and Kelly Bear was there. There were several people that were there in the dream, and we were running through like a mall. Like it was a typical like zombie movie, like in a mall, zombies everywhere. I had the Alice Tarot, which is not a tarot deck that I own. And yeah, I had the Baba Studios Alice Tarot, and I was using it and I would throw a card at like a zombie or something and kill the zombie with the card. And then over time, the deck would get like really worn and a mess and disgusting, I suppose. And then it would sort of refresh and kind of like heal up. And then I would go back into fighting zombies with the Alice in Wonderland Tarot from Baba Studios, which is probably the last deck. I mean, that's an expensive deck. That is probably the last deck that somebody would want to be throwing at zombies. Oh, no. I think those are the only two dreams that I can remember that like had anything to do with tarot or divination tools in them. I don't know, Miss Veronica talked about something. Yeah, I can't catch it, so I'm not going to try to figure out what it is or try to say anything about it when I can't see the whole conversation. Okay, I'm going to pull a card here. You would think, because I read professionally, so every day, I would say nearly every day, I'm doing multiple readings. So you would think, and I review decks, obviously, I have tons of deck reviews. My business, a good part of my life surrounds decks and cards and things. So you would think I would dream about them more, but I really don't. I really think those are the only two I've ever had, at least that I remember. I guess that's the key. I guess the ones I remember. Okay, let's see what our card for the week is. Ooh, we have the Hanged Man. So this art piece is called, I still haven't found my glasses. I mean, they're in my apartment. I don't take my reading glasses anywhere else. So I know they're in here. It's just I can't find them. It's so frustrating because I literally have a one room, which you can see, like it's one room. It's the living room, the dining room area. It's just one room. And then there's a bedroom and then there's a bathroom. That's it. That's all of my apartment. So how I can lose things and for this long, it just drives me insane. It'll make perfect sense when I find it. Anyways, this is Two Acrobats by Ernest Kirchner in Switzerland. Well, it's in Switzerland. And the quote is, when I let go of what I am, I become I become what I might be, Lao Tzu. I have Selkie feel. I've tried all of the things, but I've got to do them all over again. I know. So here's our card. I quite like this hangman. There's quite a bit of like balance that's going on here, but there's also that intentional swapping things upside down, right? He's intentionally putting her in that position. He's intentionally putting himself in that position of seeing things upside down. So I quite love that. I think it's a great painting for it. And I love the concept here, right? That when we put ourselves in the position of the hanged man, when we swap ourselves around where we're seeing things through new perspectives, right? And let go of the world as it is upright and swap it upside down, that's when we have the opportunity to become who we could be. But as long as we're holding on to who we are, there's no potential for us becoming something else. So the hangman is allowing us to shift that viewpoint so that we can not hang on to who we are, but become who we might be. I think that's really beautiful. So we want to be thinking about that this week as life is going about being life. In what ways do we need to let go of who we are so that we can become something more, which I think is pretty awesome. Oops, down here. I know they sell chains for glasses. I guess I just haven't accepted that. And plus I probably wouldn't wear them around. It wouldn't help me, let's be honest. I lose things all the time. And so if I had glasses on the chain, they wouldn't be around my neck. And so I'd still lose them. I just know myself. It's just irritating, when you have such a small space, you feel like, how are you supposed to really lose things when you have just these set places that you can go? It's somewhere probably I have my couch is really a love seat, and both like the ends are recliners. Like there's two seats that recline. And so things get lost in all different places that are very hard to get your hands. But I actually remember, I need to use my pendulum, because I actually remember setting them someplace and thinking, that wrong thing that you do when you set them somewhere and you're thinking, okay, I'll remember that I put them here. I'll come back to this in a minute, which is never good. Just don't do it. I remember specifically setting them somewhere. I just can't remember where. So I need to get out my pendulum because it's in my head, right? I know where my glasses are. That's what pendulums are really great for. I mean, they're good for a lot of things, but one of the things they're really good for is when you know that you know, right? You know that you know where it is. You just can't remember it. And so pendulums can be really great for kind of getting past that upper part of your brain that forgot and get down into the part that does know, but just you can't access. I talked of things I can't find, and I'll say, Goddess, look, please look on something is lost and needs to be found. And I say what you're looking for. I will give anything a try. I feel like they're in a box. I don't have a lot of boxes. It's Geomancy is also built in, like directionally how you can find things, and it always makes sense after the fact. I've said before, it's one of the things I'm working on, even though it's not been very helpful to finding the things. Once the things are found, it's like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. And I feel like if I do it enough, I start to get a little bit better at thinking about where they might actually be saying that they are. But yeah, anyways, I will do a whole other walkthrough. I just have to literally go through every piece of where they could possibly be And one of these times they'll show up. I know they'll show up because they're here somewhere. I have definitely, neighborhood art says a box could be a refrigerator. I have definitely put things in the refrigerator. I've found things in the microwave, and I don't even use my microwave very much. So that was a weird one when I found it in the microwave, but definitely the refrigerator. My glasses are always on top of my kit. I buy reading glasses from, yeah, see, I have astigmatism, and so I have to purchase them. And so I don't want to lose them. These aren't that old, but they're here. They're here somewhere, and they'll randomly show up, and I'll be like, oh, I knew where they were all along. Makes perfect sense once you actually find them. It makes perfect sense why they are there. And yes, my kids actually, Leslie, it used to be I would pay my kids to find them. That always worked, right? Give your kids $1 and say, can you find my glasses? Bam, they will find them. I'm pretty sure that at 27, my daughter is not as interested in getting paid $1 to kind of find my glasses. Yeah, definitely the Fae. And that could possibly, I've done lots and lots of walk in the wood readings, which have had a very Fae component, so that wouldn't surprise me either. Although I believe they were lost before then. Because fairy oracle, people have said a lot. I have not experienced this a lot, but I have heard a lot of people say that working with Brian Froud's fairy oracle decks, that things go missing more. I mean, I always work with Fae energy anyway, so it doesn't, I guess, feel much different when I'm using the decks or not using the decks. But I've heard a lot of people say that the decks go missing, cards go missing, things go missing when they're working with the Brian Froud oracle, which I have combined at the moment. I put them both together so that I would have a big giant one. Although I have to say that I've had the two of them together, but almost all of the cards, at least in the last since I put them together, I just recently put them together, but they've all been the Heart of Fairy ones coming up, which has been interesting. But yeah, that makes a nice chunky fairy deck. I don't know what that has to do with anything. I find things under the couch because of the cat. Strangest thing. Belle doesn't really, she doesn't mess with things on the floor or that she finds, unless when she was a puppy, she did. Oh my gosh. Remember, she ate she definitely chewed some of my cards when she was a puppy. I could not leave things on the floor. And in fact, when something fell, I had to grab it very quickly because puppies are fast. But now that she's old, and she's not old, but she's a full grown adult, she doesn't really mess with things on the floor. She doesn't chew on wires. She doesn't really chew on anything except for her chewies. So I feel like if they're on the floor, she won't have eaten them. But at her burying, she does bury things, but she buries them in obvious places. It's so hilarious to watch her. She'll take things, one on the couch and one's like in front of the television thing, and then there's one other spot, but they're like right out in the middle of everywhere. And she'll go over there, she'll find the perfect place, and she'll kind of put it down and bury it, fake bury it. And it's like it's the most obvious places on the planet. Oh no. Oh, okay. Let's see. Miss Veronica seems to be telling us something about flipping a glass. I missed it. Let me roll up. Why do you think so? Okay, you can't actively look for it after. Something about flipping a glass, but then you can't look. So apparently it must be a folk, magic thing where you have to do something and flip a glass and then don't go look for it. just allow it to maybe turn up. Maybe Miss Veronica will give me a concise message about what they're talking about, because I'm quite interested in trying this out. Don't make us scroll all the way back, Miss Veronica. Tell us what we should do. And that, I'm kind of scrolling back a little bit. Sherry, you are so right. I think that the key is making sure that you have a pattern in where you put things. I'm like that with my earbuds. So I have a pair of Apple earbuds that are not connected to a wire, which is so dangerous, but I love them so much. And so I just simply, it's either in my purse or it's next to my bed table. And I've just forced myself to have where those things are never there anywhere except for there or there. And I need to do the same with my glasses. But so you turn a glass upside down, right? So it looks like Miss Veronica says a folk thing. Supposedly you trap the spirit that stole it till they give it back. So apparently you turn the glass, I'm assuming, face down on the table. But then you don't go about trying to find it. You just wait and it will show itself. It will show up. You're not supposed to actively search for it after doing so. I think what the thing is. So I will give that a try. I will happily give that a try. I did look and see. I do have bread and honey out. I always have bread and honey out on my shelf. And I thought, oh, maybe I didn't refresh it or something, but I did. And then say, whoever stole it, return it back. I was taught to look for it after. Oh, you were taught to look for it. Yeah, I'm sure. And it's so interesting to see. That's what I love about, like, we talked, one of the topic sessions was talking about folk magic. And it's so interesting that you'll see those same similar things happen across different cultures with variations, right? And even within the same culture, you can have variations where it's just different families do different things, like take that where you put the ring, you hang the wedding ring. Well, in my family, you hang the wedding ring on a necklace, the wedding ring of the person who's pregnant, because obviously some of these folk tales assumed if you were pregnant, you must be married. So you would take the wedding ring of the person who is pregnant and hang it on a chain, and you use that to over their belly to determine whether, as a pendulum, to determine whether or not they were having a boy or a girl. And of course, different people are probably going to have different items that you would hang over. Different people will probably have different ways. If it's going this way, it's a boy. If it goes this way, it's a girl. Or if it goes this way, it's a boy. Or if it goes, have different variations on it. But there, a lot of people will have those same sort of folk magic type things with different variations, I think is always really cool. I would like there to be a really good book that kind of pulls together similar folk magic things and kind of lists out all of their different variations and things like that. I would be really interested in something like that. I'm missing thing, the only phase, the answer, unless it's my little black cat, Hell says. So yeah, I will try it. I will definitely try to try the cup thing. There's a lot of folk beliefs in Eastern Europe. I think there's a lot of folk beliefs everywhere. It's just, I don't think we often, as we talked about the last time, I don't think we often, we don't think twice about some of them, right? We just, it's become so, some of the things are just so much in the way that we do it that we don't even think about it. For example, like all of my ultra Christian family members, what I would get in there, and I'm not saying that, it's what they are. Like, they're fundamental Christians who are very much against anything witchcrafty or tarot or anything divinatory, bad, bad, bad. And yet they all do the pendulum thing with the ring. Like, what they don't even think twice about it. So it's so interesting, because to me that is divination. You are trying to divine the gender of a child through a divinatory pendulum method, right? That's what that is. That's divination. And yet that's not something that they even think twice about, because it's just so much of, well, my grandma taught me to do X, Y, Z. Or like, as we talked about then, if you think about like Appalachian folk, some of the Appalachian, conjure, I think more than, there's different kinds. But one of them is very much rooted in Christianity, where they'll use the Lord's Prayer and different Bible verses and stuff in order to do magic. So they're practicing, it's very clearly magic, but it is so intertwined with Christianity as well. It's like a mix of those things, and it's just turned into, you know, a very specific set of things to do magic. So it's fascinating. Kelly, do you still use the Weaver's Oracle? Yes. Yes, I just recently watched a video of you reviewing a couple years ago. It's an amazing deck. I most definitely use it. So I have a couple readings that I consider to be like, you know, my favorite readings. They are the most close, other than, you know, obviously you have tarot readings and things, of Lenormand readings, that somebody has a question and you answer the question, right? So that's one type of reading. But I have several readings that are like really about how I see the world working, such as the ancestor reading, and then the web reading is one of those as well. And that central to that reading, which I do a lot, is the Weaver's Oracle. So I use the Weaver's Oracle quite a bit, but I never pull more than one card from the Weaver's Oracle. I just use one. It's very, those grandmother energies are very powerful, very sometimes confronting, and generally, in my experience, ones that to sit with for a while. They're not, for me, something that you grab and, you know, throw through three cards and get a quick message. It's like big energy that you're going to sit and work with. So yes, the answer is I do use it. I use it a lot, and I love it as much, probably more than I did when I did that review. It is definitely in my favorites list, and not one that I would ever get rid of, for sure. So we believe that means, yeah, I'm not sure what that's talking about. I'm missing that. What they're talking about there. Sure, yes, so many people use divination, have no clue what they don't think it through. Yeah, it's just passed on. It's what my grandma used to do, or something like that, which is pretty cool. The horseshoe up or down is one of those tradition splits where, yeah. And it's, what's interesting is that I do think that originally the horseshoe was not really about the horseshoe. At least if you do some reading about it, I've certainly read that the horseshoe wasn't so much about the shape of the horseshoe originally. It was just the iron. And so the fact of the matter is that any piece of iron has the same effect. It's just that everybody had iron horseshoes. That was a common piece of iron to have around the house or the farm. And so they used horseshoe there. And then, of course, over time of people using it, now we see the horseshoe shape as being a lucky shape. But it was more about the iron than it was about the horseshoe. So you also see iron crickets. I have an iron crow up there, and but it's more about the iron than it is to do that. For me, I would say the horseshoe would be down for luck, but I think that could probably have many different traditions. I recently saw a video in which you briefly alluded to how you see the court cards. We consider court cards topic chat. Yes, I feel like I've done some videos about court cards. I'll have to look and see if I have like a whole video on court cards. But It's definitely something I will add it to the list. I'm trying to keep the topics to be less specific about like tarot or something, because we can talk about those things. I guess we do talk about those things a lot. So I'm kind of enjoying talking about other, but I'll look for a video also, video question, because I feel like I might have one that talks about the court cards. And it may not be labeled that, so I'll try to find it, Nina, first. But if not, I'll just do a separate video just on court cards. But I will tell you in a nutshell right here and now, because we're talking about anything. For me, court cards are not really so much about people. I very rarely have court cards referencing. Maybe that has to do with the kind of questions that people come to me for, or the questions that I use when I'm reading tarot. So I don't tend to have court cards being about particular people. Now, I do have cards that I know always show up for me, such as the Queen of Swords and Justice. Those are kind of cards that I always, especially the Queen of Swords. And I do have certain people where it's like, okay, the King of Swords comes up and I'm like, yeah, I know who that is, right? So there, it sometimes has that layer. But for me, court cards reference how, if there's the ice cream truck, the court cards reference how the energy is moving in the reading. And this is very much, if you have the Mary L. Tarot, if you read Marie White's description of the court cards, when I read that description, I was like, yes, like spot on, right? Spot on. If I had to write about the court cards, that's how I would see it. So it was one of those moments where you read something and you're like, yeah, I could have written that. Not because you're smarter than them, but just that it's like so completely shows how you read the cards. And I hadn't seen that, because a lot of traditional stuff will reference people. In fact, if you go to old traditional, it's colors of hair and colors of eyes and young and their ages and things like that. But for me, the court cards are about, if we're looking at the reading and then we have these other cards that tell us certain things, the court cards telling me what should I do with that energy, or what should the person do with that energy. So the pages are initiating energy. It's that first spark. It's learning. And we're starting to do something with the energy of their suit, right? Of course, the court cards or the knight cards are action oriented. They're out doing something. They're questing. They're out running around. That energy is moving, and it will. And that particular, whatever that suit is, that energy, so if it's the swords and it's the Knight of Swords, our mind should be moving and processing and doing things. The queens are about setting up the environment around you so that suit can grow. So when the queens show up in a suit in a reading for me, it's like, okay, the Queen of Cups showed up. What do I need to do in my environment? Cleaning my house, clearing house of people maybe that aren't conducive, literally cleaning my house. What do I need to do in my physical world so that the energy, the emotional energy of the water, or the power energy of water, can grow? I need to do something in my physical world to set the space so that energy has the potential of growing. And then the kings are about setting structure, right? I need to organize structure, set some boundaries. I need to make decisions about surrounding that particular energy of their suit in order to, that's what I need to be doing with that particular energy. And so that's how I work with, when I see court cards, I'm always really excited, because it gives us an idea. It gives us a hint as to how is that energy moving, and how should we be working with that particular energy. Anna Teresa, how do is the elements in the court positions? I'm not sure. I'm not sure if you're saying how do I see the elements? I guess did I mean? Oh, do you mean like that the queens are, all of the queens are water, all of the kings are fire? That's how I see it. If you're talking about elemental associations with the courts, is that what you're talking about? Yeah. Yeah, I do see the pages as earth, the knights as air, the queens as water, and the kings as fire. That's how I see them. You're going to get variations of that, obviously. Same thing with the directions or seasons or anything like that. You can ask 10 people and you're going to get a couple different answers. But that's how I associate them. I definitely have a video on elemental associations. I have a video on that. there's a term for that. It's not elemental associations. There's a term for that. And Teresa sees pages as fire, knights as air, queens as water, and kings as earth. That it makes sense. Like, I think most people can make an argument. Like, yeah, it's like, but I can't. There's a name. I don't know. I'll try to find the video, but I do have a video about it. I know about what the traditional ones would, which would probably mean the Golden Dawn associations. Again, you're going to see variations on everything that's layered onto tarot. And of course, the elements in the suits are layering on top of the bones of tarot. All that stuff is extra things layered on. And so you're going to see various correspondences. And I think most people can make a good call for that, right? I think that people can make a call for swords being or fire. You know, you're forging a sword in fire. And wands that, you're waving a wand through the air and making, something happen. So I think that most people, it makes sense to me to put the kings as earth and solid and steady and structure. That makes perfect sense to me. But then I can also make an argument for the kings as that fully transformative energy that is active, masculine based, that can transform not just their own world, but their entire kingdom, kind of, when we're talking about archetypes of kings, right? So I think that there's not a right and wrong, in my opinion, to correspondences. It's figuring out what resonates and works for you. And then the key is, I say this in every class I ever teach, the key with anything is figuring out how you see something and then applying it consistently. The problem comes when we pull in all kinds of different things and we're constantly using, this time we're doing this time we're doing that, and then the next reading we're doing something different. And that's where we start to get muddy readings that aren't clear. We get readings that are more likely to move towards what we want the answer to be versus what we need to hear. And so whatever we decide for correspondence, just have it make sense to you and then apply those consistently. And that's where you'll start to get, I think, really clean readings. I don't think kings are boring. Kings are awesome. And queens are awesome. Okay, so yeah, hopefully that answers your question in a nutshell, Nina. I mean, obviously that's a big topic, but that's my take on the court cards and how I read them. It just keeping, when you see them, say, oh, here is a barometer of how the energy is moving right now, and or how I might need to work with that particular energy. Because if the energy is the night energy, right? So let's just say I'm doing a reading where I'm trying to get stabilized. I'm feeling really flighty and all over the place. I'm doing a reading about getting rooted and grounded, and the night of air comes up. That is going to be a very active energy that's going on in the heads, going blah, 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 blah. So then I know that I need to do something to bring my brain down into what it is that I'm trying to achieve. So it's not that night energy is bad, but it's bad if you're trying to stabilize. It's not that being stable is stagnant, but if you're trying to get energy moving, having really stable energy is not going to be as conducive to what you're trying to do. I'm babbling, but anyways. When telling time with the suits, pentacles are the slowest when a client asks how long it will take. You know, I don't deal a lot with timing. Timing, I think I could be totally wrong, but I'm going to try to say it was her because I feel like it was Caitlin Matthews, maybe in her Lenormand book. I feel like it was in her Lenormand guidebook. But anyways, Mary K. Greer or Caitlin Matthews or somebody like that that's, you know, done a lot of research and things, had said something like, you know, timing in readings is about 25%. You can maybe nail it 25% of the time, and 75% of the time, it's just going to be a miss, right? Because it depends on how, and this is why I tell, you know, any class that I teach on divination, the first thing that you should be doing is figuring out, what do you believe about the future, right? Because you have to know what you believe about the future in order to deal with timing. You have to. You've got to know, how do you see the future? Because if you see the future as something that is fixed and unchangeable, then timing can be far more specific, right? Because it's going to fall into alignment with a particular to that worldview. It's like, okay, well, this is actually going to happen at this set time, and so I can do my readings to figure that out because it's much more fixed. I don't believe in a fixed future at all. I believe that we have big paths that we're on, so there is some degree of being on a greater path, but that our future is continually shifting and changing with our choices, big ones, small ones, with the choices of other people around us who have an impact on us, sometimes random people that decided to drive drunk and get in a car accident with us. Like, minute choices and decisions are constantly shifting and changing our future. So for me, the idea of doing a reading where there is a pretty solid timing doesn't really work with the way that I see the world's view. So I will set parameters for the timing, like, could this happen within the next 6 months or 3 months or something like that? Or especially with like Lenormand or something, I'm doing this grand tableau on the next 3 months and sort of set those boundaries up to some degree with the reading. But when a client wants to know when something is going to happen, I always have to have that conversation because of the way that I see the future working. That we can kind of get a feeling if things are going there quickly or not going there quickly. Are things moving in that direction, or are they just like rock solid and nothing's really moving right now? I'm more inclined to look at those types of things than set. This is going to happen. If it's the Pentacles, it's not going to happen, or something like it's going to take a long time for that to happen. I don't really just deal with timing, I guess, the same way other people do. But I do think you can get a feel for if things are moving in that direction or if they're not moving in that direction. If there are things that are blocking something from happening or not, are open to that potential of those things happening quickly. For like direct timing, I would be more inclined to use something like Lenormand, because you have cards like the ship card that's going to take a long time, or you have the rider card that's going to happen a lot quicker. And I don't tend to do those types of questions with tarot, where I'd be more inclined to use something like Lenormand or Kipper. But that's the way that I see things. So that's the thing. I think the key is that we have to know what we feel about the future so that we can, be very clear to the people we're reading for. There's not that expectation there. And even for yourself, if you're reading for yourself, coming to terms with it, having a strong idea of how you see the future and how you feel that those types of things work is so important, because it affects the way that you interpret the cards. And again, rambling. Quick question that I ramble about. I see some things are fixed and other things are not. Yeah, I definitely agree. I'm not one of these people who believes that we're not heading towards anything. I do think that we have this greater path that we're on, that when we're moving in that path, things move more easily. There is a trajectory to our lives that I do believe in, that you could think of as sort of destiny or fate. And I don't like the term fate so much. That feels very fixed, but I do think there are greater paths that we're on. But when that's going to occur and how that, especially when you start talking about like relationships, because then you have two people. So you not just have one person making choices and decisions, but you've got another person making choices and decisions. So when that's going to occur, in which they can kind of meet up together, becomes very, very problematic in my worldview. Yeah, it's definitely for me about energy manifestation. I mean, it's about where is the energy at right now. And it's also about, I do believe that you can manipulate that. And that's what's so interesting in that older system. So like geomancy or runes, for sure. Even I would say oghams, but definitely runes, definitely geomancy. When you're looking at some of these older systems, there was a built-in understanding. I Ching, same thing with I Ching, that what we're looking at are energetic representations. And so if we do a casting and the energy is looking one way, just not concrete, you can then say, okay, that's really probably not going the way that I want it to go. And I think this is true of tarot and things as well. So what am I going to do to change that, right? And so if I see this is the information that tells me how the energy landscape looks, but I want it to go in this direction, well, then what are the things that you need to do to shift the energy pattern? With geomancy, you could actually be changing one symbol into the next symbol. Same thing with runes. You might sort of combine some runes or additive, add energy in or subtract energy away so that you can shift things in the direction that you want them to go in. But think about even tarot readings. If you're doing a tarot reading and you're saying to yourself, where is the energy of this relationship going? Like, are there problems here? Whether the answer is something positive or negative isn't, for me, a fixed outcome. It's saying that right now, the energy is looking really difficult. And if that's not the way you want things to be, what are you going to do about it, right? How are you going to change your choices and decisions to shift the pattern as much as you can? And thinking about, okay, what can I shift? How can I shift that energy into being something more? And not looking at the readings as locked outcomes, but as representations of where the energy is heading as it currently is right now. And now what do you need to do to shift that energy as much as you have any power to do so? Of course, with a relationship, there's two people that have choices and decisions. But I think that getting away from thinking about getting a negative reading or a positive reading as being fixed, and this is, oh wow, okay, I just got the tower, my whole week is ruined or my year is ruined. No, okay, now you have a forecast that the energy is heading in this direction. How are you going to start to stabilize things, get yourself grounded, clear some space, clear some energy, so that you can work with that energy in a way that's much more fortunate for you than unfortunate? Now I'm literally rambling. I'm in a rambling mood today, apparently. People ask a quick question and it goes off into the wild unknown. Yeah, that makes me so sad. The Queen of Swords is not cold. And I know she's very often depicted that way. And I get it. It's air, it's cool winds, it's logic, it's clarity. But The Queen of Swords is, to me, banked power. You may not see the energy and the warmth and the heat on the outwardly as much because she might be much more in control of what's going on. But yeah, the Queen of Swords is not cold. Poor Queen of Swords. I will continue to fight for the Queen of Swords. Yeah, I know. You're right, Neighborhood Arts. It's my whole, I like to apologize for everything. For the butterflies and Queen of Swords, she's in control, but this is only through learning. Yeah, exactly, Joanna. Exactly. The Queen of Swords is the empathetic queen for me. To me, she's the empathetic queen because it's because of what she's experienced that she can have empathy and hold space and hold that space of clarity for people in the most difficult times. And it's not because she's cold, but it's because she's experienced those things, or she's experienced very difficult things and learned how to stay clear in the spite of those things. Which I think can sometimes present as being cold or harsh, but is not. Oh, that's so awesome. Ladybird Terror says, Anna Tree says, it looks like we will be able to see it's on my bucket list to see the Northern Lights. I have to see them before I die, for sure. Yeah, no, I agree, Anna Teresa. She's there to be clear and to have clarity, and that can be very biting. It's for sure. Yeah, the Queen of Cups, I don't think necessarily as well. I do see the Queen of Cups as being very nurturing, for sure. Sherry says, I saw them once, believe it or not. Yeah, it's on my list for sure. I was going to say, Claire, she's not always holding people's heads. And I feel like that's a very, obviously that's a biblical reference, and I'm going to totally blank on it, and I shouldn't because I know my Bible. Or at least, say this, I don't know if that's in the Bible or if that's in the Apocrypha. But anyways, there's that one queen who... and she goes in, as many queens were taken by whoever won the battle, came in and destroyed the castle or the town, and then they would take the queen as their own, didn't have any choice, so they had just gotten their husband killed, who probably she was given to anyways, but whatever. She goes in, the next person has her, and she cuts off his head. I can't remember who the story is about. Somebody will know, and they'll say, I know what you're talking about. Me too, Neighborhood Arts. Me too. Anna says, why is the Three of Swords red as heartbreak? I really don't know. I think, well, this is my theory. We know that Arthur Waite took many of the meanings for the minor cards almost directly from playing card divination meanings. Some of them almost word for word from this one particular source. So we know that he did draw on playing card definitions for some of the minors. He also took some from Atella, different places that was taken from. And unfortunately, the swords were taken a lot from the spades. But the thing with playing card divination is that it's very balanced, right? There is very good hearts and the very bad spades. There is kind of okay diamonds, and then the kind of okay over here clubs. So we have a very, very balanced system. If you just pull out some of that, but then the whole system's not there, it kind of gets out of whack. And so we have the Five of Cups, which in my opinion, again, this is all personal opinion, Five of Cups for me is about sorrow. The number 5 is disruptive. The cups are about emotions. It's heartbreak. It's loss. It's disrupted emotions. The Three of Swords, the number 3 is about growth, and the swords are about the mind. So you have growth of the mind that occurs through, yes, difficult experiences, but also positive experiences. So I don't see the Three of Swords as heartbreak. But I do think that part of the swords issue in the Rider-Waite-Smith system is that kind of pulling from the spades. It's hard to pick pieces out of systems and stick it into other systems without there being some things that get out of whack. But that's my theory. That's my theory. Kelly, is there a certain suit that you resonate with the most, like the Wands, the Cups, the Swords, the Pentacles? Definitely the Swords. For sure, I'm a Libra, so the clarity, the mind, the balance, that space is pretty powerful for me. So I definitely love the suit of Swords. It can be deck-based, though. So, for example, I'm currently doing a lot of personal work with the Ancestral Path Tarot, and the equivalent of the Pentacle suit, which is the Sacred Drums, or Sacred Circles. I think they're drums, but I think it's called Sacred Circles. That suit is so amazing in that deck. So is the Suit of Cups, because I love the story of King Arthur. So sometimes there are certain suits that are in particular decks that really call out to me. But in a general rule, the Swords are my favorite. Okay. Come back. I don't think I can't find if I've missed any other questions. I was looking, but you mentioned empathetic. What about the Queen of Cups, says Joanna? The Queen of Cups for me is compassionate, right? So I feel like there is a difference between compassion and empathy. Compassion is somebody can have a compassionate nature, be nurturing as a quality of who they are, right? There is a quality of compassion and nurturing and kindness and that kind of energy. And that's kind of how I see the Queen of Cups. Empathy, and I'm not saying this is a dictionary definition, but I think there is actually, even in the definition, a difference. So empathy is more that because you have you can have compassion for somebody that you don't have any experience of their own experiences. So let's say something terrible has happened to a friend of mine and I've never experienced that thing. I can have compassion for that particular person, for their situation. I can be kind and nurturing and compassionate. Empathy is where I have been through something really terrible, maybe myself, and that gives me empathy I'm able to empathize and feel what somebody else feels because I've been there, right? So my experiences that might be difficult allow me to have a stronger feeling of empathy towards a person. So for me, the Queen of Swords power comes from the difficulties that she has dealt with, and that's what gives her as a base of her power. Whereas the Queen of Cups is a nurturing person who is kind and compassionate and holds space for people. It's a little bit, there's a nuance between empathy and compassion for me. Again, this is just my perspective. And the Queen of Cups, definitely her power, because I think oftentimes I myself included, but I've recently come to sort of a epiphany that I think that a lot of times we relegate the cups and water to emotions and feelings and the way those connect us to other people, so relationships. But in fact, water is very powerfully about our internal power. It's the water of the high priestess. Like, water is also our intuitive power base. And so that comes in very strongly, obviously, with the Queen of Cups as well. So yeah, so that's, I guess, how I see. So that's how I kind of see the Queen of Cups, I guess, differently. Well, I think, though, what you're talking about is very, so Anna says, I don't know how to read the sword suit because the numerology associations don't drive with the card meanings. For example, yes, the 7 is a spiritual number, but it's talking about deception. Yeah, I think the difficulty is that you have to remember there are different systems in tarot. The Rider-Waite-Smith is a system that reflects the correspondences of the Golden Dawn. So Arthur E. Waite was a member of the Golden Dawn. And so the correspondences in the Rider-Waite-Smith have to do with trying to portray the correspondences of the Golden Dawn, including numerology and all the astrology and different things like that. He was also, again, pulling from different sources like Attell, like playing card meanings, things like that, especially in the minors. Thoth, of course, with Crowley, is also probably a closer depiction of straight correspondences to the Golden Dawn. Again, just my opinion. But that's a system, right? Then you have Marseille reading, which is a system of, it's not just pips, but Marseille reading is a system of reading a specific format of the pips and how you might read those things. So these are all systems. Now, what happens, I think, in modern decks is that we see a bit of a mishmash sometimes coming in, where we might, artists, we sometimes have decks that are created by people, who don't read tarot. That happens. So then we have a mishmash of things going on. We also then have decks that are really straight depictions of the Rider-Waite-Smith system. So the Three of Swords, going back to the Three of Swords, the Three of Swords being a heartbreak is the Rider-Waite-Smith system. If you're not a Rider-Waite-Smith reader, that Three of Swords depiction is going to be problematic. Same thing with the Ten of Swords. If you're not somebody who reads through the Rider-Waite-Smith system, then the Ten of Swords might or might not be problematic to you. And so you have tarot. Tarot is like the bones, right? This is this beautiful system of major arcana, minor arcana, 4 suits. Later, they didn't start being layered with elements till later. So even elemental association is something that's layered on top of these bones. And so it's up to each of us. If you're a Rider-Waite-Smith reader, then you are kind of going along with those meanings and say, okay, the Three of Swords is heartbreak. It doesn't matter whether 3 or not goes with something or not, or 7 goes with it. It's this particular system of the Rider-Waite-Smith, and you kind of can learn those meanings and go about your business, right? It's not necessarily going to make sense because it's a system that's kind of in place, and you can either, roll with it or not roll with it. It's not a bad thing or a good thing. It's just a way of reading tarot cards. A person who reads Thoth, that's a way of reading tarot cards. If you're a Marseille reader, it's a way of reading tarot cards. But you can strip some of those things away and learn how to read in a different way. And that's perfectly acceptable. Again, consistency is the key. So I read very number, verb plus element based reading. So I tend to read the Seven of Swords as being 4 plus 3 is this growth that comes out of stability. So there's going to be mental growth that comes from kind of getting what's going on beneath the surface more structured. And so that's going to be very different sometimes than a Rider-Waite-Smith depiction of the Seven of Swords. But the fact of the matter is that most of the decks that are being created, especially mass market decks and things like that, are going to be Rider-Waite-Smith based. And so if you are somebody who doesn't read Rider-Waite-Smith, it doesn't mean you can't use the cards. I'll have a ton of Rider-Waite-Smith based decks, and I just know how I read the cards, and I either can work my way around it so that it can work for the way that I read, or if it just doesn't go at all with the way that I read, then it's just not a deck that I end up getting. It's like, okay, that's just not going to work for me, and that's okay. And again, rabbit trail probably, but so that's the long answer too. The short answer is that numerologically, I still think you can get there with the Three of Swords. It's just that it's about growth of the mind that comes from heartbreak, from loss. But I think you grow from a lot of different things, not just loss. And the Five of Cups is the heartbreak card because it's the number 5 of the cups. Anyways, so yeah, that's my answer. The Three of Ten of Swords are always going to be trigger cards. Well, it's not so much. I guess trigger is now a triggery word, right? I don't find the Three and Ten of Swords to be triggering. I find them to be what will separate out a deck from being able to be used by multiple people, right? So yeah, in a Rider-Waite-Smith system, those are very hard-line cards that if you don't read the Rider-Waite-Smith, if you don't read Golden Dawn correspondences, those are going to be the cards that people look at. So for me, because I don't read strict Rider-Waite-Smith, the Four of Cups can be problematic because I don't see the Four of Cups as being stagnant. The Three of Swords, the Ten of Swords, I don't see the culmination of the Suit of Swords as being somebody dead on the ground with a bunch of swords in their back. That's just not how I see those cards. So it's very problematic if I'm reading for somebody and the Ten of Swords comes up and there's a dead body on the ground with swords in it, and I'm saying, well, the Ten of Swords is the culmination of the mind. It's we're reaching full potential of the mind, and the card that's sitting on the table is somebody dead on the ground. It doesn't really work with the way that I would read. And so I love now Anna has got her deck coming out, and she has put in. Probably because she's heard me beg for this, Miss Anna, Luna Solera on here. It's such an easy fix, right? She literally made 2 Three of Swords and 2 Ten of Swords. That way it doesn't block it off. And it's not about being like, I don't care. That sounds terrible too. I'm not gonna say I don't care that there's a dead person on the ground. And it's not that I am offended by the violence of the Ten of Swords. It's just that it simply isn't how I read the card, so it doesn't work for me. And so it's literally 2 extra cards, possibly 3 with the Four of Cups, but that's a little bit easier one to get around. But two extra cards in a tarot deck could really open it up to people that read more numerologically versus the other way. So I'm hoping that what Anna's doing with the Abyss Tarot or Tarot of the Abyss, I can't remember which one it is, but I'm hoping that sort of catches on. It's such an easy fix, and I think it really opens it up. But I do think that there's probably the majority of people buying decks do read Rider-Waite-Smith, so it's probably not a big enough issue, right, to a lot of people to really care. It's not, Sherry, it's not that there's a right or a wrong way. I guess, and I hope that's not coming out across that way. It's that there are different ways that people read it. The Rider-Waite-Smith system reads it this way, and other people might read it differently, right? So it's not that it's wrong, that the Rider-Waite-Smith is wrong and I'm right. It's just that that's one way of reading tarot, and this is another way of reading tarot, and the images don't match up for somebody who doesn't read it that way. So for me, the number 10 is the culmination, right? It's the full culmination of its suit. So the 10 of Cups, for example, it makes sense. Happily ever after. All these wonderful things are occurring. The 10 of Pentacles, we have riches that are self-perpetuating, the legacies, inheritances, these types of things. 10 of Wands, it comes problematic as well with the weighted. It's easier to get around than a dead person on the ground, right? So the 10 of Wands would be the full combination of passion and creativity and transformation. And then for me, the 10 of Swords is that coming full cycle on a way of thinking. Now, it means that there's now a new one that's going to be coming, but we're still at the end of that culmination of that cycle. cycle of thought and of reasoning and logic. And so for me, the image then of somebody on the ground dead doesn't really work with the culmination of the suit of mind and logic and reason. So it's not that one is right and one is wrong. It's just a different way. But most of the decks are created to the Rider-Waite Smith system. So somebody like me just has to be mindful of it and choose decks that work or don't work for me. So yes. I kind of read the Ten of Swords as your really low point, retract by, and the Omega goes back up. Yeah. I mean, that's a perfectly good way to read the Ten of Swords for sure. But that's why on this channel, I moan and groan about it. It's just personal preference, right? Because of the way that I'm reading it, it doesn't always work. So I have to always kind of look at decks and say, okay, is that going to work for me if I'm doing a reading for somebody? And it has to make sense with what I'm trying to read or how I'm reading. So yeah, we have been everywhere, haven't we? Swords is about the mental scars you're carrying ways down. Yeah, see, that's a way of definitely reading it. And certainly if you are pulling from the spades in cartomancy, then that makes sense why that is. But again, with cartomancy, it's balanced. It's like a 50-50 balance. We have positive, 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 neutral, negative, neutral. It's such a balanced system with playing card divination. So it just gets problematic, I think, when you pull pieces of something. That's my particular theory. Anyways, Kelly, besides the violin player and the Japper Tarot, what other cards have been in your dreams? Oh, did I have that one in my dreams? We talked about this. I really don't. We talked about this earlier. I don't actually dream about I don't dream about tarot very often. I really don't. That vaguely sounds familiar, but I really don't have dreams about cards very often. I just don't. It's kind of interesting. Maybe because I'm processing them all the time through reviews and I'm talking about them all the time. I don't have any need maybe to process them, but I really don't dream about cards very often. Definitely last night's dream was the first time I had a dream about like literal cards from Lenormand or like fortune telling type cards. I definitely had the zombie one with the Alice Tarot, but I don't very often dream about cards. I just don't. It's just kind of funny because much as they're in my life, it's funny. I try to do dream yoga in the cards right now. I'm not succeeding yet, but I'm trying. Okay, I'm going to do our poll. I'm sorry. I think that ramble took us off of the path here. Blah, blah, blah. Let's see. What are we going to use? Let's see. Let's use this Queen of the Moon Oracle. This one I'm still working to seeing how I feel about this as an oracle. Now I can't read. I really need to find my glasses. So I'm going to try that. I'm going to try Anna's and Miss Veronica and Anna had similar theories or folk passed down remedies of losing things with turning a glass over. And I'm going to try that because I really need to find my glasses. So I'll let you know how that goes. So I'm going to, Miss Nikki, she had messaged me last week that she just has a lot of things going on and that she may or may not be able to make things. And so I think she's just busy and I'm sure she will be back. And we all miss her very much. That is for sure. Queen of the Moon Oracle by Stacey DeMarco. I know we should all miss her because she is like the queen of the hammer, the queen of the hammer. I don't think I have. Have I tried asking St. Anthony? I have. I know that St. Anthony is the finder of lost objects, but I have not asked St. Anthony. I would probably ask some, which is something I could do, is ask some less trickstery fae to maybe help me find them. So I haven't had a lot of luck with moon decks as moon decks. Like I don't like pull them. I guess I don't. I use moon energy as the moon cycle is, so I don't use a lot of moon oracles as much because I don't know. I just don't. But this one, I don't find they all often work just as a straight pulling oracle. But I actually find this one does pretty good as just pulling cards as an oracle. So it's still in my test phase of how do I feel about this deck as a straight up just oracle deck versus like pulling maybe a card out that's for the moon as it is now and kind of setting that out there to represent it. I feel like this one actually works as a oracle deck. So it's still in the test phase. You guys are all my oracle testers. I never use this Queen of the Moon. I'll say, see, this is a one, and I have the Moonology one. I have a couple of them, and most of them I don't find really work as just a straight up oracle deck. But this one, I feel like it actually does pretty well. So we're gonna try it. I feel like it's very moony. Okay, so we have beginnings, gratitude, and beauty. Okay. Okay, so our first card is the beginnings card. This is kind of shiny deck, so I apologize. This is a new moon card. Things are just beginning. Of course, you can also think about sort of that pause with the black moon, like it's the true beginning of the new moon, being sort of that pause before things start to begin again here. But I do really like this imagery of the doorway, kind of stepping through. Are we going to step? It's like an opportunity. Are we going to choose to step through this door? So then it becomes a choice because we've got a doorway. And I think whenever we see a doorway like this, are we going to step through is our choice. And what are we stepping through to? And the next card is the gratitude card. I do really like the hands here. You have an old hand and a young hand. You have that coming together of old knowledge and new knowledge. But this idea of stepping into gratitude. Oops, I got them backwards. No, that's right. Okay. Stepping into a space of gratitude. Stepping into a space in which you can learn from the people that are around you, learn from your ancestors, learn the lessons from your grandmother or your mother, these types of energies. But this is saying, let's step into a space in which we have gratitude for all that we have around us, that we have gratitude for all the knowledge and the wisdom that we have access to here. It's a conscious choice to step into that space, right? Because it's really easy for us to get to be in all of us, to have periods of time in which we're in a space not of gratitude. And again, this doesn't mean that we have to be happy-go-lucky all the time, or that we have to always be searching and being in the light and there's no bad things. but we can make choices about where our mental space is in. And sometimes there becomes a point in which we need to step out of the space of what we don't have, or what we're striving for, or what we're reaching for, and we need to step into a space where we're holding what's in front of us and having gratitude for that. I think that's really beautiful there. And then the last card that we have is the beauty card with the waxing gibbous moon here, right? So when we step into a space of gratitude for what we have and for what is in front of us, we're able to then see the beauty, which I think is really lovely, right? It's just that reminder that we all need sometimes, that are we going to this week's, stay in a space in which we're not seeing what we have and we're not seeing what's around us and the gifts that we have around us? Or are we going to choose to step into a space of gratitude and see the beauty that's all around us? So I think that's a pretty message, and that's a good. It's not always easy, right? I think that sometimes we look at those types of messages and we think, oh, well, that's a fluffy, easy message. Step into gratitude. It's actually not, right? It's not always easy to step into a space in which we take the hand of what's in front of us and learn from what it is that we are that's right around us, and are able to see that beauty. That's not easy, when many of us, and all of us at some point or another, can find ourselves in really difficult places. And so when these types of readings comes up, that's not always a say, oh, well, that's nice and easy. I'll step into gratitude this week, right? It's not fluffy and it's not easy. It's the hard work of figuring out how are you in a space in which is not particularly conducive to opening yourself up to, because there is still something, right? If the reading comes up for you, then there is still something there that you can be grateful for, or there is that hand that you can take, and there is wisdom that you can gain. And there is beauty to be seen, even if it's harder, and maybe most especially if it's harder to be able to do those things. So I think that sometimes we mistake light readings for being easy, and that's not necessarily the case. I think that oftentimes those are the ones, if we're really sitting with that energy, that's going to take some worth, but that also sometimes are the things that we can benefit greatly for in that moment, because we may not be able to see that ourselves. So that makes it very powerful. So there we go. That's that. We are going to, I know I've kept you guys over the 2 hours. I tried to keep things a little contained, but we were extra chit-chatty today. As every time, I appreciate you guys taking your time to chit-chat with me. Really enjoyed the topic. I can't wait to hear next week if you guys have any crazy dreams. I would challenge you maybe this week to keep a piece of paper or pad of paper next to you, or your phone. Put the icon for the voice recorder so that as soon as you wake up, you can kind of talk, record what you remember of your dreams. But maybe try this week to track your dreams and to think about your dreams a little bit more, so that we can see next week how if people had crazier dreams because we were talking about dreams. And if maybe you can make some progress in remembering your dreams if you don't normally remember your dreams. I will try to find, I know I have a video about a reading spread for dream interpretation. So I will, right as soon as I hit stop on this, I'm going to try to find that and link it into the description box. If you want to come back a little bit later and check that, you might want to try that out this week. I had that dream last night, so maybe I will do and put that on Instagram and use that spread. So yeah. Maybe try those things out, and we'll check back next week and see how people's weeks of dreams went. So hopefully nothing crazy here. Hopefully we didn't trip the wire for everybody having crazy dreams tonight. Okay, you guys all have a wonderful rest of your week. Stay safe. Enjoy your weekend. For those in the U.S., this is a long weekend. We have a holiday weekend, so a lot of people are out camping, as I said, and doing things, or going to cookouts and with family and all that kind of stuff. So enjoy your long weekend if that is the case for you. And I will talk to you guys all later. I'm getting ready to upload as soon as I stop. I do have a walkthrough of the Literary Witches Oracle, which I love. There you go. You don't even have to watch the video because I love it. It's very long and rambly because I'm talking about books and I love books. But I will put that up. It's all ready to go. I just have to upload it. So that will come up later tonight, however long that takes to upload. And I will see you guys all later. Okay, I got to always do this. And bye.